So I think that for those partners that are trying to enable themselves, going into their smaller customers and saying, hey, can we have a discussion around, how you manage your sales? Are you still doing it on spreadsheets, or are you using QuickBooks and you feel maybe there are some pain points there because you've outgrown it?
Welcome to Evolved Radio, where we explore the evolution of business and technology. I'm your host, Todd Kane. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking with Douglas Fiore with Tech Data. Doug is a former Microsoft Dynamics business owner who now works as a partner enablement manager for Tech Data. Doug and I discuss some of the opportunities available to Microsoft Cloud partners. Dynamics is a growing practice area for many MS partners, and if you haven't considered how it could help your business, this podcast will help highlight the opportunity available. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast so you get every new episode. Also, if you wouldn't mind, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. This helps others find the show so we can reach more of the community. Now, on with the show. Joining me on the podcast today is Doug Fiore with Tech Data. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Todd.
So we're chatting about the cloud, more specifically the Microsoft Cloud. But if we end up expanding beyond that, then excellent. Your position at Tech Data is pretty central around enabling partners and helping them to expand their business and make sure that they're getting their clients what they need. So this is pretty central to a lot of the things that you're exposed to and the conversations that you're having with IT partners. Do you want to expand upon your role and just kind of fill people in on what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for many of you listening, you know that Microsoft has invested in what they call their three clouds. One of those clouds is Modern Workplace. Another one is Azure. And then the third one is Dynamics. I focus specifically on Dynamics and working in that space, but I have colleagues and counterparts and teams that also work in the other two cloud areas as well.
Okay, great. I think most people listening are going to be familiar with Modern Workspace, primarily the Office offerings and things that revolve around Microsoft 365 and Office 365. I'll just touch on it as sort of a launching point for kind of what I want to put to you as an idea for this conversation. Ages ago, back in the early days of BPOS, which was,
yes.
I'm sure anyone who's been around in the industry for a while remembers BPOS as the original sort of iteration of what is now Office 365, where they kind of pulled these things, specifically Exchange and a few other solutions, and pushed them into cloud offerings. And I don't know if you remember this, Doug, but I had lots of conversations, mostly working inside organizations, and VPs were furious with this change, thinking that this is the death of our professional services businesses, and we make all of this money on supporting and hosting Exchange, and upgrades are a big part of our revenue. And a lot of people were very dramatically resistant to this move. And I kind of looked around and I was like, look, if Microsoft is pushing this direction, I don't know if you want to throw yourself on the gears in the machine to try and stop it. It just doesn't feel like a winning battle. And I think the more I started to work in this field and look at how BPOS was being deployed, what I got a sense is that it just removed a lot of the complexity, the unnecessary complexity in supporting Microsoft infrastructure. You no longer were required to look after the bare metal and support that infrastructure more broadly. And sort of the reason that I sort of posit the story is that I think this is sort of one of those early opportunities that we're now seeing kind of with Azure, where people are kind of suspicious originally of, how they could enable that in their business. Will they be cannibalizing some of their business if they move all of these services to the cloud, and what value could they then present? And where we get to sort of the conversation with you, Doug, is I think the people need to start to think about what are the consultative solutions that they're providing to their client businesses. And technology providers, very sort of appropriately, are no longer really IT providers, but more broadly technology providers. They need to think about what the businesses actually require and how technology can enable what they're trying to build. And I think there's a huge greenfield opportunity in the enablement of Dynamics services and a Dynamics line of business for a lot of IT providers, and especially for the managed service providers. So that's kind of my pre-ramble on this. Do you want to give me your thoughts on sort of how you see that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that you hit it on the head, that there was this, a lot lot of the Microsoft community kind of dug their heels in early and just weren't convinced that they could maintain their business once things started to move to the cloud. But I think that we've seen that proven wrong, right, over the last 10 years, that a lot of businesses are really flourishing since they've embraced the cloud and brought their customers to the cloud. And it's funny because Dynamics was really one of the first tools that was delivered in the cloud way back in the day of, CRM was the first business solution that Microsoft really offered in the cloud. And I remember at that point in time, I had built and run a Microsoft consulting company, and the cloud discussions to get CRM into the cloud went very easily. It was really interesting that customers were very interested in saying, hey, I don't want to manage this whole thing, and I don't want you to manage it for me. Can we just use it? And can you show us how to use it and make it work for our business? So actually the sales process accelerated a bit when we started to see Dynamics in the cloud back in the day. And I think it's becoming easier now. The cloud's making it easier to accelerate those business discussions and say, hey, you don't have to worry about maintaining an army of people to manage this infrastructure for you. That's taken care of. Let's talk about how we can solve your business problems today.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'd actually kind of forgotten that CRM Online was like way back in the day. That was one of those early services. Yeah, that's right.
It was right around the BPOS time.
Exactly.
They both came out at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So I think one of the things that kind of maybe scares people away from leaning into Dynamics, and I'd love your sort of position on this, seeing sort of people switch to this and moving to enablement. I think people think somewhat rightly that Dynamics is a bit of a beast and difficult to configure, and it's kind of like if you deploy Salesforce, you're going to spend a ton of money and a ton of time to get this set up and configured. How true is that, I think, is my question.
I think there's truth in it depending on the size of the organization you're speaking with, right? If you're working with SMBs and they want to fire up CRM so they can turn 3 of their salespeople onto CRM and they can start to manage their business and have visibility into that part of their business, it's pretty easy. If you walk into a Fortune 1000 company, yes, there are complexities, there's scale that makes it very difficult. So I think that for those partners that are trying to enable themselves, going into their smaller customers and saying, hey, can we have a discussion around, how are you manage your sales? Are you still doing it on spreadsheets, or are you using QuickBooks and you feel maybe there are some pain points there because you've outgrown it? Maybe there's a business central discussion you can have. So I think for organizations that don't know about Dynamics, the on-ramp there is not as hard as some people say if you start with some of your smaller customers.
So like a lot of the listeners to the podcast tend to be in the MSP space or the smaller side of the IT consulting space. So let's sort of appeal to those minds initially. And I think it's a good launching point, right? If you're going to dip your toe into this business unit and develop something around a Dynamics practice, what are some of the things that people should consider? CRM, I think, is an obvious one. If a client doesn't have a CRM, why sort of send them over to Zoho or HubSpot or something like that? If CRM Online is an equivalent for that, is that the best place to start? And are there other areas that people should consider?
I personally would start with CRM because and when we talk about Dynamics, I think a lot of people, they hear the word Dynamics and it's like black magic. They're kind of, their minds just kind of like, oh, that's too big and that's too complicated. And I don't really, so to simplify it, there are really 2 components within the product family. One is a CRM, or customer relationship tool, and the other components, and there are various products there, that are ERP solutions, right? They're the finance and operations. That's how businesses run that part of their business. So I think the complexities of ERP and understanding, accounting practices and finance and maybe, manufacturing and some of the complexities on that side could be intimidating for MSPs that are used to working with, kind of the data center and providing, solutions just from that perspective. So I think a good on-ramp for those organizations is from the CRM side, where the complexities aren't as great. You don't have to have specific accounting experience. But I think that the one addition you may have to add, and you probably have people in your organizations to do this, is really kind of some business process mapping, to understand how does the sales and marketing function work within your organization. Map that out and make sure that when you implement CRM, that it is kind of it's either working the way your business already works, or it gives you an opportunity to improve how you're doing it and then implement a solution that provides those improvements as well.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, I think this is a sort of an area of growth for a lot of IT providers, where they're now implementing ERPs and PSAs, especially in their business, and they're doing a lot of this work, and they can kind of turn their efforts of the work that they've done internally to their clients' businesses as well, and really help them around that operational muscle. And I think that business process mapping and just sort of understanding, what are you actually trying to accomplish? What does the work actually look like around here? And that's a consultative opportunity that I think a lot of people don't really sort of perceive the opportunity, both in additional revenue, but also the trust, the loyalty, and the stickiness of being able to help a client understand their business and functionally improve their business with technology.
Absolutely. And I think that through that process, as you kind of described there, is through the process of taking them through this process and holding their hand creates lifelong relationships. Right. And that's one thing that I think Dynamics does, I think more so than any other cloud solution, is that it creates really sticky customers, and you build good, solid, deep relationships, and the relationships are less transactional and more consultative.
Yeah, great. So the other half that I think people could consider, where there's an opportunity for it, if you have a larger organization that potentially requires an ERP implementation, I think to your point, it's not necessarily something that people will feel comfortable with, and probably in the near term of the development of a Dynamics business shouldn't take on themselves. But this is an area that I kind of call out as a perfect spot to find a Dynamics partner that does not do infrastructure. They have no interest in competing against your MSP or IT consultant business, and they would love the opportunity to help your clients develop their ERP and their Dynamics deployment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's you're highlighting what one of the biggest proponent, or the biggest positive components of our tech data relationship with our customers is that we have thousands and thousands of modern workplace or MSP partners that are used to going in and selling hardware and implementing networks and storage and those things. And they have good relationships. And then if they bump into a Dynamics opportunity, they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
So many times they come to us and they say, hey, can you make an introduction for us to one of your Dynamics partners? And we'll figure out what the requirements are, how big the company is, what they're looking for. And then we'll go through our Dynamics partner portfolio and we'll make a match and we'll say, okay, you two go to market together and go close a Dynamics deal together. And they can structure the deal any way that they want. They can structure it in either the Dynamics partner, the MSP keeps the Dynamics licensing, or they work on a referral basis, or whatever it is. So we've established these relationships, and these now are turning into repeatable relationships where they may do one opportunity together, one deal together, and then they go back and go find more together. And the beautiful part of it, as you kind of hinted at it there, Todd, is that these are non-competitive partners. They're not, we've got MSP partners that don't know Dynamics, and we've got Dynamics partners that are really good at that, but they don't do a lot of the MSP stuff. So they complement each other, and they really don't have to worry about cannibalizing each other's business.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I think it's sort of there's a bit of a trust factor that I've in my past in the organizations that I've run, I've leveraged partners that were great at specific skill sets, and historically, the one that pops to mind the most would be SharePoint. It's pretty easy to deploy SharePoint and kind of have the basic services enabled, the vanilla deployment, as it were, but it doesn't prevent a ton of value. Whereas if you can get a partner that really understands SharePoint, can do a bit of consulting with that business and really make it sing for them, it's an entirely different animal. And that has in my history of enabling partner relationships that way, I never got burned, right? So I think that there's sort of a false narrative in people's head, a bit of a fear that, if I introduce some other partner, then, either I'll be seen as less valuable somehow, or they're going to, say, well, we don't need this other guy, and they steal your business away from you. And I can say from my experience, that's almost universally not true, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I have not seen that. And I know that back in the day, I had built a successful Dynamics consulting organization, and we established those types of relationships. And we understood that, if we started competing against each other, we're both going to be worse off, right? Yeah. So the smart partners are working to work together and not compete, and those are the ones that we're paying close attention to and working with here at Tech Data.
Okay, great. So I think just to reiterate that point of leveraging you guys as a distribution partner, asking Tech Data for some help to get those introductions, I think is a good idea. I think initially, I would have imagined you reach out maybe to Microsoft, the channel partner support, and ask for that type of referral. But I think that it's probably a better idea. I think the responsiveness and sort of the due diligence from a partner like yourself is going to be much better, produce a much better result for the partners.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things, and I love Microsoft. I love the Microsoft ecosystem. I think that there are many Microsoft partners out there that would agree with me that, Microsoft is a big company. Sometimes it's hard to get answers and have a level of responsiveness that helps them be successful. Tech Data has an entire team here that focuses just on Dynamics, and we've got SLAs in place where we will respond to you within 24 hours to get you the answers that you need, right? So we have a team here of licensing experts as well as partners that are people that are managing those Dynamics partners with us, as well as the Modern Workplace partners and the Azure team as well. So we have the entire Microsoft cloud covered, and a lot of people working to help out our partners.
Okay, great. Is there any other areas of this business around what you're seeing people sort of leverage the Dynamics business for, or to be successful, or any things that we haven't touched on yet?
I think that one of the opportunities I hinted at earlier was that, a lot of these SMB customers have, when they started their business, they said, well, let's get QuickBooks and it'll solve some problems for us, right? So I would think that any MSP has dozens of customers that are using QuickBooks, right? And many of those customers have probably exceeded some of the functionality that's in QuickBooks, and they're experiencing pain. So just having partners go in and talk to their customers about, are you using QuickBooks? And are you experiencing any pain or limitations? Those are easy questions to ask. And I'm willing to bet you get a lot of yeses to those questions. And then it's very easy to turn that discussion into, well, let's talk about Microsoft Dynamics and see how we can provide a platform that's going to actually help you scale and move your business forward instead of inhibit its growth. So I think that's something that we're seeing within our customer base that is really resonating and driving Dynamics discussions.
Now, maybe this is old terminology, but my understanding would be sort of the nav and the AX side of Dynamics. Would that be, I always forget which one's the big one. I think AX is the big one?
AX, yes. Okay. And actually, so now I appreciate you bringing that up, because now there's been some rebranding now. Okay. And I did mention earlier, there's a CRM component, and then there are these ERP product family of ERPs. And depending on the size or the type of business, there's a different ERP solution. So back in the day, there was Solomon or Dynamics SL, and then there was Dynamics AX, which is Exapta. Dynamics GP, which was Great Plains, and then Dynamics Nav, which was Navision. So of those four products, Microsoft decided they were going to take AX, which is their enterprise solution, and turn that into a cloud solution, which they can now call F&O, and then take the Nav product and migrate that and turn that into their SMB ERP solution, which now they call Business Central. So when we're talking about Dynamics in the cloud, there are two solutions, yet there are four on-prem solutions that these two solutions were born out of. Right.
Okay. Yeah. I think most of us want to look towards those cloud models to be future-proof, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it breaks out pretty easily. If you've got an SMB customer, the cloud ERP solution is Business Central. Okay. And if you have more of an enterprise, customer, the right solution for them is what they call F&O, or Finance and Operations.
Okay, perfect. The other part that I would say that my exposure to some of the products that I've seen being built in Dynamics, one of the strong sort of influences that I really like about working in that ecosystem is its heavy ties into the rest of your Microsoft stack, right?
Absolutely.
Being able to work in Outlook is something that is a really strong ask and a demand in some cases for salespeople. And if your Microsoft 365 accounts are automatically tied into your CRM through email, and there's a lot of tagging and things that can happen pretty much automatically.
Yes.
So tracking communications with the client, you're not updating tools in parallel to try and keep all of that data current. It's just automatically built into the stack. Are there some of the other features that sort of stack enablement really allows?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, to your point, it's beautiful for a salesperson to be able to be in Outlook, which I think most of us live in most of the day, right? And actually be entering data that is then automatically is going to be pushed into CRM and recorded in CRM. So that's beautiful from a salesperson's perspective. But the other thing is from a sales manager perspective, that creates accountability. So if you're running metrics on activities and other things like that, your sales team doesn't really have the opportunity to say, well, I didn't enter it, right? Because of that tight integration with Outlook. There are tasks in CRM and so forth that can be pulled in. Additionally, Business Central, you can actually go in from Outlook and look into the Business Central ERP solution, and you can look at things like inventory if you're looking for a specific product and other things. So Business Central, CRM, Outlook, all those things are tightly integrated and work really well together, as well as other tools like Teams and SharePoint. All of those tools fit together.
Is this something that even like IT providers and MSPs should be considering on, like maybe they've been on QuickBooks on-prem, for example, and they're considering, do I go to QuickBooks Online or do I go to Xero? Should they actually consider Microsoft Business Central for that?
I would absolutely, yes, suggest so, because it's a great tool. It integrates with everything that you're already using. But at the same time, it gives you exposure and experience. So now you can go to your customers and you can say, I use this tool every day.
Right.
I know how it works. I know how to engage with it in order to improve my business. Let me do the same thing for you.
Yeah. No, it's a great idea. I hadn't even considered that. There's another accounting package that is potentially better integrated to your ecosystem, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Yeah. Any sort of final words of wisdom or a call to action for the listeners before we wrap up here, Doug?
The only call I have, Todd, is that if you're interested in learning more about, how to leverage Dynamics in order to, increase your top line and create better margins in your cloud business, Tech Data is a one-stop shop. We can help you do that. In addition to this partner-to-partner kind of model that we just described, we also have enablement services. So if you want to understand how to become a Dynamics partner and make those investments in your business in order to, 12 or 18 months down the road, make the transition, we have enablement tools and resources that can help you do that. So we have tools like our Dynamics Cloud Practice Builder. We have people for you to work with in order to kind of take you through that process. And then once you can get to the other side and drive some Dynamics business, you have then the ability to participate in our partner-to-partner network, so we can start bringing you Dynamics leads from the MSPs that really don't want to invest there.
Excellent. Okay. Well, that's great info. Really appreciate the perspective, Doug. Is there any place that people could reach out to you directly, or should they just reach out to Tech Data Frontline?
Nope. Reach out to me directly. My email address is douglas.fiore. The last name is F as in Frank, IORE @techdata.com. Or we do have a Microsoft Dynamics alias at Tech Data, which is msdynamics@techdata.com.
Okay, perfect. I'll include those links in the show notes as well. And if you haven't started your Dynamics practice in your IT consulting business, there's no time like now, because the future is bright in the cloud, right?
It absolutely is. Absolutely is.
Thanks for your time, Doug.
Hey, thank you, Todd.